So we're less than a month away from the election. And Donald Trump, a couple days ago, came down with COVID-19. You may have heard about the virus. He came down with COVID. Now, I have been, if anything, critical of Donald Trump, his entire presidency. I have been so critical that I've been called a bleeding heart liberal by my own friends and family, even though I voted Republican in every presidential election. And I'm going to be critical of him again. I think the way Donald Trump has handled him having COVID over the last 3 days, is the worst thing I've ever seen him do. And is the worst moment of his presidency and campaign. I am not surprised at all to have heard people tell me or ask me or talk to me about the idea of, how could you possibly vote for this guy? Who is this guy? I've heard Republicans say, I don't know if I can vote for him. I don't know if I can vote for him. And that's a real testament to how terrible Donald Trump has done in this last week, or even in this campaign against Joe Biden. The algorithm for how the Democratic side is handling this is super obvious. They're stepping back. They're not answering any questions. They're shutting their eyes, closing their mouth. They're just standing there and letting Trump self-destruct. Trump is used to the playbook being, I'm going to bully the candidate, because the candidate was Hillary Clinton. I'm going to bully the candidate. People are going to love that. People are going to love my bravado, this unabashed, kind of confidence, and go America go, and all sort of stuff. And the Democrats are saying, well, the only way we lose is if Trump puts the spotlight on us. If Trump puts the spotlight on Joe Biden being 78, on Joe Biden probably not being capable of being president, barely being capable to talk for any amount of time. They're not putting the spotlight on Kamala Harris and her radical policies, not putting the spotlight on Kamala Harris and what she has said about Joe Biden about, 3 months ago. So the only way they lose is if Trump does that, if Trump hammers them with that. And they've said, we're not going to let him do that, because we know that all he wants to do is put the spotlight on himself. So if he does that until November, we're going to win. And I'll tell you this right now. If the election was tomorrow, and if I was a betting man, and we know I am, I would bet that Joe Biden wins. I right now, I would say that I'm pretty confident that Joe Biden would win if the election was tomorrow. Joe Biden right now has a bigger lead in the polls or the numbers or whatever you want to believe. He has a bigger lead right now than Hillary Clinton ever did. Joe Biden's multiple points, and we're talking about a much bigger lead than Hillary Clinton. So yes, I understand that the polls were wrong once. I understand that the polls are not an end-all be-all. But this is real bad. This is real bad, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better, because Biden and Harris are just kind of digging their heels in, and they know exactly what's happening. And Trump could not have made a worse display of that than during this whole COVID thing. So he gets COVID. Here's a timeline. Now, again, guys, look. We're not going to talk policy here. I'm not going to break down every Senate race. I'm not going to break down, the key states. I'm not going to break down battleground states and stuff like that. If you want that, if you are here for that, please finish this podcast and then mosey on over to the Ben Shapiro's of the world and the Rush Limbaughs of the world and whoever else of the world. That ain't me, okay? That ain't me. If you want to talk about the post office and the postal code, go, please. Look, I cannot be asked to care about the post office, okay? The day I start doing podcasts talking about the post office, it'll probably be about the end. That'll probably be the time where it's time for me to pack up and move on. That'll be as bad as it gets. But I will tell you about how I'm perceiving this and how I'm seeing all this and how it makes me feel as a voter and how I think it makes other voters feel. And I'll try and speak both sides of this. So I've been as you all know, I voted for Donald Trump. And as you all know, I've said I would vote for Donald Trump again if I had to go back and do it over again, because my issues were border policy and immigration and things he's been strong on. Right now, it is right now, I am having the hardest time I've ever had in my entire last 4 years being like, yep, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I think what he has done in the last 3 or 4 days has been downright embarrassing. And I'm not totally sure how anybody can still be buying into this Hulk Hogan fake-ass machismo stuff. It's blowing my mind when I still hear people who treat Donald Trump like some kind of god and who are still impressed with his gunslinger mentality and like the tweets and all that stuff. Like, I shouldn't be surprised because that's how some people have made an absolute living in talk radio, but it's just so sad at this point that people are just still like that. Like, I think most people, most tried and true MAGA members that I know are really easing off of the MAGA. They're really those red hats are getting put into a lot of attics, if you know what I mean. Those red hats are being put in some boxes and stowed away. And I think a lot of people are really cooling off on that, and people are more along the lines of, okay, let's just vote for the party in spite of the president. And that's where I'm at. I am at, let's vote for these policies versus this person. 4 years of these policies versus the radical left policies is better than the alternative. Even if it means we have to deal with 4 years of some, tweet happy cartoon character. We can figure it out 4 years from now. And that's what I want to tell you all. Now look, I'm not swaying you which way to vote. I don't really give a shit which way you do vote. Doesn't matter to me at all. I'm not going to shy away from what I do because this isn't a political podcast. And this isn't a podcast that's built on, we don't have a requirement. We don't have a requirement that you're a Republican. We don't have a requirement that you're Democratic. We don't have a requirement that you're white or black or straight or gay. It doesn't matter to me. I hope you're all, not in one person. It'd be impossible to be all of those things unless you're like some kind of three-headed beast from the underworld. But I hope we have a reflection of all of those. I really do. I love hearing from different people. I love hearing from different ideas. I don't want a 100% right or 100% left listener base. And I know I don't have them. Or I know I don't have that because I get shit on in my own comments on YouTube more than any YouTuber on earth. All right? 90% of the comments are most of the times people disagreeing with me or calling me a simp. It happens. But I'm not Clay Travis. I'm not Ben Shapiro. I'm not placating to one group. I know this is probably going to get a lot of dislikes. I know this is probably going to get a lot of bad comments. Whatever, I don't care. It's not a big deal. Honestly could care less. And there's not a lot of people putting out content who believe in that. People probably already disliked and clicked off of this by the time that I said I don't like Donald Trump. All right? That's enough for them. But I'm just going to tell you how it is. All right? So don't think that this is one way or the other. But I do think it's really important for both parties, however you're voting, to think about who you are voting for. And I don't mean the person. I mean the policies. Okay? If you didn't like Obama's America, if you didn't like that progressive, radical kind of regime, you are not going to like what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are doing. Kamala Harris is probably more radical. This group is probably more radical. Things like the Green New Deal, things like socialized healthcare, those are all the things like abortion. Just all of those are really important topics. So do not sell yourself short. It's like a Sally went to the seashore to collect seashells. Do not sell yourself short and just say, well, Trump sucks. Well, Trump's a racist. Well, Trump is an egomaniac. Well, Trump's a tyrant. And then move on and say, I'm voting for whoever else. Just like don't look at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and say, well, I'm not voting for Democrats, and then you're going to Trump. You really need to go see where you fit in. You really need to go see where you are at on topics like abortion, like immigration, like Iran, like gun control. You need to go. Climate change, all of those things. Healthcare, college, student debt, whatever. You need to go search out those topics and figure out where you are at on those topics and where those policies end up. This is a really important election, and I don't think we can get away with a campaign like we have right now where one side is refusing to answer questions and one side is making this whole thing like a real-life SNL skit. That's not fair to us. So what do we have to do? We have to go and make our decisions for ourselves. You sure as hell aren't getting them from listening to a debate. You sure as hell aren't getting it from CNN. You sure as hell aren't getting it from Chris Wallace. So you got to go do it. I am advocating for you to go and search out these answers. If you think Trump's a racist, go see if he's a racist. If you think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are cool, go see if they really are that cool. Because if you're a small business owner, they might not be that cool. Okay? Or if you're an unborn fetus, they might not be that cool. So you need to go figure it out for yourself. That's as far as I'm going to say on that. So let's talk about Trump on COVID. Well, actually, I'm going to take a step back. So Mike Pence and Kamala Harris are debating tonight. Honestly, this is a hot take. This is controversial yet brave. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm the first person that would say this. And maybe the only person that has said this. I think Pence right now would be a better candidate than Trump. I think Pence would have a better chance of winning this election, and I think people would vote for him more than Donald Trump right now. If we were in a Republican primary, I think Pence would beat out Trump. Because Trump's superpower of this like bravado that worked so well against the Clintons, there's no one to work it on now. It's actually kind of a detractor because Trump is so far away from policy and so far away from actual things that matter, and he's just saying the same old stuff over and over again and sounds more and more like Hulk Hogan in Saturday morning cartoons than a real life human being, that I think someone like Pence, who is more of a politician, who is more of, yeah, I might be a boring kind of guy, but here's the issues. A ticket like Pence Cruz or something like that versus Trump Pence, I think the Pence Cruz ticket would destroy the Trump ticket. So the reason I say that is that this vice presidential debate is going to be interesting to see how Pence can do, because Pence is probably a better illustrator, a better narrator of Trump's policies than Trump is, because Pence doesn't get caught up in all the bullshit that Trump does. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what's going to happen. This is being recorded about 5 hours before the debate. What's going to happen is Pence is going to be accused of being a misogynist. He's going to be, sexist. Kamala Harris is going to dodge any answers. There's no reason for her to answer anything. Not to mention she can't answer anything. Kamala Harris is flip-flopped on every issue. Go ahead and Google search her thoughts on social health care. Go ahead and look at her thoughts on the Green New Deal. You'll be confused because she has supported and been anti both issues in the last calendar year. So Kamala Harris isn't going to answer anything. She's just going to sit there, get through this debate, and then once she gets through this, they can go back to sitting on their back foot and not doing anything and letting Trump destroy his campaign. So I just want to get that hot take out there. Now let's talk about the COVID thing. So Trump gets COVID, right? This would have been a really good time for him to kind of, rally behind people who have had the virus, people who have lost people to the virus, start to connect with them. So it would be a good time for him to kind of bunker down. Instead, the White House gift shop started selling coins, talking about Donald Trump defeated COVID. He rode around in a cavalcade waving to his loyalties of fans. He put out a commercial where he's ripping his mask off and he's defeated COVID. COVID is basically like this dragon or something, and he has slayed the dragon. We are closer to Donald Trump died for our sins, Donald Trump lived so that we could destroy COVID, than we are to like actual reality. The stuff that he is saying, the stuff that he's putting out, these interviews, these tweets, the tweet, I had it pulled up and I accidentally deleted it, but the tweet he had about COVID, the tweet he had about, I'm not going to be able to find it, but the tweet he had that was like, don't let COVID do this, don't let COVID dominate your life, I had it, I beat it, ain't no thing, I feel better than I did in 20 years. Great drugs, great hospital, great doctors, really kind of the best doctors, all that stuff. That tweet alone was like, hey, Don, remember all that stuff I said about you needing to like rally behind people who have had the virus? You are just shitting all over their chest for no reason. I mean, imagine if you lost your parent in COVID and you see that tweet and you're just like, what? What the hell, man? Like, he is making this so much about him and so much about him beating the virus and all this other stuff that it's just really left a bad taste in my mouth. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I like the guy. I'm not going to sit here and say that I respect the guy. I'm not going to sit here and say that, I think he's cool or any of that stuff. Far from it. I'm pretty comfortable saying like I'm off the Donald Trump thing. I'm off of that. I'm done, like with Trump. But like I said, I have to look at what the policies are going to be for the next 4 years. And mine align more with those policies of the Republican Party than what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are pushing. So in spite of Donald Trump, I plan on voting for him in this election, and I know that's going to rub people the wrong way, but I'm also full of transparency here. It is what it is. So, but I certainly would not tell anyone that like he is 100% the right move. He is 100% this. He is the commander in chief. Hopefully this is an experiment that is over. This idea that these like cartoonish characters, maybe he was a necessary evil for the Hillary Clinton stuff. I don't know. But I think this experiment of these loud, cartoonish, bullish characters who are less policy and more cartoon, hopefully this is over. I really think if literally anyone was on the Democratic side, I think they'd run away with this election. And hopefully that's the case as far as the future. I talked about before on here that I thought that we were staring at a future full of The Rock's, Kanye West's, whoever won People's Sexiest Man of the Year basically got the nomination, And I think people are now rebuking that idea and saying like, holy shit, we can't do another 4 years of this. We can't do more of these tweets. We can't do more of these weird like, I don't think Donald Trump is Mussolini. I don't think Donald Trump is like a tyrant dictator maniac, but I do think he's egotistical. I do think he's a narcissist, and those are kind of conflicting. Like I can definitely see where people would see what he's doing and be like, holy shit, dude, are we living in North Korea? Like I can see where people would make the jump. Now, obviously, you got to come back to earth and be like, okay, well, even though it looks like we have a leader that the Simpsons are making fun of or something, what's actually happening in America is not comparable, or some would say comparable, to North Korea, not comparable or comparable to Mussolini, to China, to Russia, and that stuff. So let's not let hyperbole, or as my good friend Ryan would say, let's not let hyperbole get in the way of this. Trump is a cartoon character. Trump is full of himself. Trump is forcing himself in the spotlight to the detriment of his own campaign. But I don't think that he is erecting, bronze statue of himself in place of the Statue of Liberty and is going to start ethnic cleansing. Like I don't think it's one and the same. I think you can sit here and say, hey man, Trump has done a really shitty job with the whole COVID thing, man. Yeah, I think you can for sure say that without then saying, hey man, Trump has done a really shitty job with this whole COVID thing. I think he's going to enslave us. There's a jump. There's a big jump. I was just having this conversation with a young lady who she was talking about abolishing prisons and the police. Shows you how great online dating has been nowadays, right? But she was talking about how there are bad cops. Agreed, there are bad cops, but there is a huge jump from there are bad cops to abolish police. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. I agree with you the first step, but there's that you just took a big jump there. The same thing with Trump, where I think that before, it was like I love Trump or I hate Trump, and now it's like You can love Trump. You can not like Trump. You can dislike Trump. You can really dislike Trump. You can hate Trump. There's not these huge jumps of I'm either in love with him and voting for him, or I hate him because I think he is the an incarnate of Adolf Hitler. Big difference there. Big difference. So I just want people to step back, think about what's going on here, really think about if you don't vote for Donald Trump, if you don't vote for the Republican Party, what are you voting for? And the reason I say that is because they won't tell you. The Democratic side is not telling you right now. They're not letting you know. So you have to go do the research. I'll give Trump this. I'll give Pence this. I'll give the Republicans this. If you're voting for the Republican Party, you know what you're voting for. You're voting for what we just had for the last 4 years. That's it. I'm phrasing the question that way as far as if you're not voting for the Republican Party, what are you voting for? Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they really haven't told us anything. Joe Biden has declined to answer if he's going to fill, if he's going to pack the Senate or whatever. He's not answering anything about the Green New Deal. He's not answering anything about abolishing the police. These are all things where it's like, I really need to know that if I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I really need to know what the other side is. Is the other side the Green New Deal? Is it abolishing police? What is it? What actually are we doing? Or what's going to happen with Iran? What's going to happen in Tehran? Like, what are we actually doing? No one seems to know. So before you vote, please go figure it out for yourself. And that's what I'll say about that. We are right around the hour mark. I could go back and forth on this Trump thing. It's just, I'm disappointed in him. Just kind of as a person, just kind of like his demeanor, just how he's acted through this whole thing. I'm disappointed in the few MAGA people who are left. God, I mean, I just don't know I don't know how you could be a MAGA person right now. I really don't. I mean, I understand how you could vote for Trump. I mean, I'm probably going to be voting for Trump, but I can't understand how you're wearing a red "Make America Great Again" hat unironically, and you think he's the man. It's like, I don't know. I think there's some real daddy issues going around with a lot of the MAGA guys who a lot of those fellas who think Trump is their god. I think they might need to go find them a hobby. Maybe they need to go become car guys, but I think it's more daddy issues than not. So